I'd like to welcome the candidates for treasurer, Ugo Egbunike, 09, and Arden Klemmer, 09, who's represented by her proxy, Claire Cooper. Okay, Kate is going to ask the first question this time, and Ugo will be the first responder.
All right, Ugo, what will your philosophy in allocating money be? And as treasurer, what kind of environment will you create for clubs? And I realize that's two questions.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd just like to say that as treasurer, my primary goal would be to create an open and welcoming environment for club leaders, as well as students on campus. In turn, this is why I'm personally offering more office hours next year if I am elected. And as I have stated earlier in my candidacy statements and whatnot, in order to insist not only establish clubs on campus, but also newly chartered clubs that are new to program and event planning. In terms of the allocation of money, I do find it easier to reward clubs that have been successful with events with proper funding. However, I have to stress that I will push for established clubs to be efficient in their funding despite having successful events. I've seen a great number of clubs bring a lot of great events with very little funding, and it should be noted that more funding does not automatically ensure the successful event. I would also like to work with established clubs in going further with programming and trying out new events next year that may prove to be educational as well as entertaining for the campus. I feel at times established clubs underestimate the advertising power they carry with just their names and support. In terms of new clubs, I am just as willing to fund their events as long as leaders show proper dedication and enthusiasm for the programs that they want to throw. This is why I will personally offer my time to new club leaders as they begin to get acclimated and understand the budgeting and programming process. The SFC has spent a great deal of time this year in budget meetings going through really a lot of unprepared budgets that lead to a club not getting this funding. And I feel that it is my hope that next year, as BSG treasurer, club leaders will utilize my office hour extensions in order to have their budgets properly prepared and events well planned out. In turn, I'm calling on potential SOC candidates to have unyielding dedication to assisting and advising clubs on campus next year. From my perspective, if a club has properly planned and budgeted an event with great advertising and campus support, there's absolutely no reason why they should not be funded.
Thank you. And then Arden, represented by Claire. Yeah, do you want the question?
I don't think that's necessary.
Right.
When allocating money, there are two main criteria to consider. Will this money benefit many students, and will this money create diverse and unique opportunities at Bowdoin College? On one hand, the money comes from every student's tuition, so the more students affected by an event, the more successful it was. Think of Campus Activities Board. On the other hand, there's a lot of value in the smaller, more varied clubs like Capoeira and the Knitting Club. Not every school can boast having those two clubs, and its outlets and alternative learning opportunities like that are what makes this college special. Finally, I'd like to point out that ideally, it is not the SAFC that sets the environment for clubs, but it's the clubs that set the environment for the school. The SAFC's job is not to choose which events are best, but to fairly distribute the students' money.
Okay, thank you. Steve's going to ask his question, and Claire will answer first.
Claire and Arden.
She's here.
That's here. In past years, the SAFC has been chastised for an alleged lack of approachability and an unfriendly meeting structure. What are your thoughts on this, and what, if anything, would you change about the way meetings work if you were treasurer?
Of course, I will encourage all SAFC members to have a positive, welcoming attitude in meetings. And I'll continue Nicole Willie's tradition of having more casual meetings complete with drinks and snacks. However, I think that the real chance for progress lies outside of the weekly meetings. I believe that the tension in SAFC meetings is caused by a lack of understanding. Most people have the tendency to get nervous when presenting a budget request to the SAFC because they are quite literally being judged, and 9 times out of 10, they aren't entirely aware of the criteria that they are being judged on. On the requester side of the table, it may appear that the SAFC just arbitrarily says yes to some requests and no to others. However, from the perspective of an SAFC member, there are many instances when we sit there asking ourselves, don't you know we can't give you money for that? Therefore, office hours and any other way to increase the understanding of how the SAFC operates should help this problem. Not just the rules, but also the reasoning behind the rules should be clear to each treasurer so that no club feels cheated out of funds. Again, I will do this in office hours. I will look over request forms and call or email people who have clearly violated rules in the handbook. I will give club treasurers a heads up if they'll need an explanation ready so that no one is put on the spot. These one-on-one sessions with club treasurers will provide a familiar face in the SAFC come meeting time, but more importantly, it will help us to avoid situations where the club treasurer feels attacked by the SAFC. Hopefully, in time, it will come across that the SAFC is here to help groups, not to hinder them. Beyond that, all I can do is ensure that all SAFC members are friendly during the meetings, but I am certain that a better understanding of how and why SAFC decisions are made will significantly help the dynamic in SAFC meetings.
Okay, thank you. Ugo has 2 minutes on the same question. Do you want Steve to repeat it?
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay.
First of all, I'd just like to say I think we've done a great job this year so far in pushing on the transition of the SAC with the location change of now having budget meetings in the WRC. For next year, I would say that I might move them to the Multicultural Center just because the WRC is kind of falling apart. But another subject. But in the past, I have found that students have legitimate and constructive criticism for the SAC that has gone unnoticed because they feel unable to approach the SAC in such issues. This is why I'm stressing in my agenda for next year that as SAFC I will offer more office hours, at least twice during the week by taking 3 classes, in order to meet more with club leaders and students. The SAFC budget meetings have been inefficient at times because of unprepared budgets and changes in club leadership that leave new leaders unaware of policies and procedures. My opponent has brought up the idea of online budget proposals, which I'm not against. However, my speaking with club leaders has alerted me that club leaders have trouble with budgets, not because of format, but rather because of lack of information. As BSG's treasurer, I wish to regularly meet with club leaders, not only to update them on policies and procedures, but also to get a sense of where clubs are at as the academic year progresses. With this agenda spanning from the newly invigorated initiative of the SAFC to be more approachable and friendly, I would hope that the SAFC budget meetings in turn become more of an approval session where committee members are seeing great budgets with great programs as opposed to programs that have been planned without any real guidance or help. In turn, I wish to help the treasurers and external club leaders go through their budgets before the budget meeting, so it's more of a sit-down session of us approving the budgets and saying, okay, I already talked with this person about, their advertising campaign, who they're going to co-sponsor with, who they're working with on planning this event, and it's just a matter of them getting the money, as opposed to us nitpicking through the budget saying why they're trying to get a reimbursement when they know they can't get a reimbursement.
Thank you, Ugo. Are there questions from the crowd for the treasurer candidates? Yeah, Alicia and Ugo will answer first this time.
All right. I've heard certain concerns about the legitimacy of co-sponsorship and that it's basically a bunch of acronyms on a sheet of paper to get more funding, but that the authenticity of working together and actually putting on this event doesn't come through. How would you address that concern and improve co-sponsorship?
That's a great question. So this year we try to enforce more of a monetary policy where we would try to get clubs to be fiscally responsible for co-sponsorship. And the problem with that is clubs were less likely to co-sponsor because they felt that, if they were co-sponsoring and fiscally responsible for $500, they wouldn't be able to have their event next month. That usually costs them the same. With that, I'm going to stress for co-sponsorship next year that it's just as much a fiscal responsibility as it is a physical responsibility. And that, I think, goes in part with me offering my extended office hours next year. I want to work with club leaders and be sure on their budget that they have designated that, okay, say AFAM is going to throw an event, well, LASSO is going to be in charge for advertising, and they're willing to cover posters, and they're going to make sure that they put up posters around campus. Or say Africa Alliance wants to have a cookout, well, who's going to cook what foods? It doesn't have to be necessarily a monetary or fiscal responsibility, as it does, I want to know who's doing exactly what. So if the program does turn out to be unsuccessful, I can go to this club leader and say, well, what did you do?
That's time.
Thank you.
I guess Sinclair can't answer this, sorry, so I'm just going to ask a slightly different question. As a person who's representing Arden, you presumably know her kind of well. What would you say as her friend of the traits that will make her a good leader in some capacity as a city?
Sure. She was my roommate last year, so I spent a lot of time with her, and in her spare time, she spent a lot of time talking about the SAFC. And we were also involved in a college house, and we had a lot of discussions about what type of programming should go on campus and how the money should be allocated. I really can't speak for policies specifically. I can assure you that if you have any specific questions for her, she's very easy to contact and very accessible and would be more than willing to answer your questions. In terms of her traits, she's been on SAFC for 2 years as the class of 2009 class treasurer. And through that, I think she has a lot of experience. She's also a member of many organizations, and she knows what it's like to be on both sides being on an organization and sitting on the FC, and I think she has a great deal of experience there. She's a very approachable person. She has a good sense of humor about things. She likes to have fun, but she also has this very serious and capable approach to this position.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a concluding statement prepared for Martin?
I don't know.
Hugo, do you have a concluding statement? You have 1 minute.
I mean, I've had experience working this past year on the SAFC. I've made great friendship with the club leaders on campus. I just feel that I'm prepared to take on this leadership position. I've considerably altered my schedule just to take it on, and I think that shows my dedication to the position itself and my willingness to be that working tradition on campus next year for the SAFC.
Okay, thank you. Could we